Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to completely decode the mystery of sudden teenage mood shifts, and we're going to do it using some absolutely fascinating clinical data straight from MentalSpace School. If you interact with teenagers on a daily basis, you know that navigating their emotional landscape can sometimes feel like, well, walking through a minefield blindfolded. Every single step is uncertain, and man, the reactions can be explosive. So today, we're going to look at the hard data, break down what might actually be happening just beneath the surface, and explore a structured, deeply compassionate path forward.
So, is it just a phase or is it something more? If you're a parent or a teacher here in Georgia dealing with a teen who is suddenly irritable, anxious, or just super down, it's completely natural to ask yourself this exact question. Just imagine a student who usually loves hanging out, suddenly quitting their favorite activities and snapping at everyone. You see the short fuse, right? You notice them withdrawing from family dinners, or you see their anxiety just spiking over seemingly nothing. And you're left sitting there wondering, okay, is this just standard everyday teenage development, or am I looking at the warning signs of something much, much larger?
All right, let's jump into part one, the teen mood mystery and what's really going on. To truly understand what's happening in these confusing moments, we first kind of need to look at our own baseline reactions to this behavior.
Because when we see these jarring emotional whiplashes, we almost always tend to fall into one of two extreme camps. On one hand, it's incredibly easy to just chalk up the anxieties and the short fuses to standard teen moodiness. We dismiss it as a frustrating but basically harmless phase that they're just going to grow out of. Or on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we immediately leap to these terrifying fears about severe addiction, and we start picturing the absolute worst-case scenario for their entire future. But living strictly in these two extremes, it actually completely blinds us to a very common and highly treatable reality.
And that brings us to part two, the hidden substance factor. Because there's a variable here that frequently gets totally missed in all the panic and confusion. It's a crucial middle ground bridging the gap between normal teenage angst and full-blown addiction.
There's this possibility that often gets completely overlooked when you're in the heat of an argument or sitting in a tense disciplinary meeting. And that is, sometimes a substance itself is driving the mood. We aren't just talking about some deep-seated psychological flaw here. Sometimes the physiological use of, or honestly, the physical withdrawal from, these specific substances is the direct biological culprit behind that newly shortened fuse, the massive anxiety, or the deep depression. Whether we're talking about alcohol, cannabis, vaping and nicotine, or even certain prescription meds, the biological toll these take on a still-developing brain can manifest entirely as a dramatic mood shift.
Which leads us perfectly into part three, shifting away from blame. Because recognizing this biological reality completely shifts the narrative away from shaming the teenager. And let me tell you, that is a massive, game-changing step forward for families and educators who are just trying to help.
Here is the crucial takeaway. A substance-driven mood is literally a physiological reaction to a substance or its withdrawal. It is not the same thing as a substance use disorder. Think about how vital that distinction is. It removes that heavy, terrifying stigma of severe addiction that instantly makes teens super defensive and parents incredibly scared. It basically reframes the behavioral issue as a physiological reaction that can be addressed logically and calmly. This points everybody toward the exact right kind of help rather than just triggering this endless cycle of punishment, shame, and secrecy.
But here's the thing. Because this is such a complex, tangled web of physiology and emotion, you absolutely cannot just guess your way through it. You need an objective professional to untangle it all so the care actually works. A licensed clinician has the specialized tools to look at the teenager's life and figure out, is a substance masking an underlying anxiety disorder, or is the substance withdrawal itself creating the anxiety in the first place? Actually getting this sorted out definitively is the only real way to make sure the support perfectly fits that teen's unique needs.
So what do we do about it? Part 4. Enter MentalSpace School. Because knowing the problem is only half the battle, right? Having a systemic, completely non-judgmental way to address it is where the real magic happens for K-12 schools in Georgia.
MentalSpace School offers comprehensive, immediate support that's designed specifically for the school environment. And think about how critical timing is here. When a teen is in an active crisis, telling them they have to wait 3 weeks for a therapy appointment, that just doesn't work. So they provide same-day teletherapy. They also build out dedicated therapist teams for each individual school to make sure there's real continuity of care. They handle the heavy stuff, like crisis intervention and suicide prevention, and they don't even stop at the students. They offer staff wellness and family counseling, utilizing diverse, culturally competent therapists. They do the whole shebang because teens simply do their best when the adults around them are supported and working together as a unified team. All right,
Let's look at Part 5. Real help, real outcomes. Let's see how effectively this model removes those huge traditional hurdles to getting clinical help and what actually happens when you do.
We all know that cost is easily one of the absolute biggest hurdles to mental health care today. But by accepting Medicaid at $0 out of pocket, this life-changing teletherapy becomes instantly accessible to countless families who might otherwise be completely priced out. I mean, it profoundly levels the playing field. A teen's physiological and emotional needs can actually be met totally regardless of their family's financial situation. That's huge.
And to put that into perspective, just look at these real-world outcomes derived directly from their data. An 89% improvement in attendance, a staggering 92% reduction in anxiety, and an 85% family satisfaction rate. You guys, this proves that when you accurately target the root cause of a mood shift without assigning blame and with the right culturally competent clinical support, the results are just undeniable. Anxiety plummets and school attendance soars, which allows the student to finally get back to thriving.
And for the schools and the families out there managing the actual logistics of making this care happen, the infrastructure is completely vetted and ready to go. MentalSpace School has a massive insurance network. We're talking Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, United Healthcare, Humana, and way more. Plus, they operate with incredibly strict compliance standards. They're fully HIPAA and FERPA compliant, and they proactively offer HB 268 compliance support well ahead of that July 2026 state deadline. So you know the program is as reliable and future-proof as it is effective.
So if you're ready to stop guessing what's going on with your students, or frankly your own teenager, and you want to start genuinely supporting them, these are the direct channels to connect with a clinical team today. Just visit them at mentalspaceschool.com or shoot an email to mentalspaceschool@chttherapy.com. The infrastructure for support is already built. It's incredibly compassionate, and it is right there waiting for you.
I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought to consider for your own family dynamic or your classroom. We spend so much of our energy trying to correct the behavior, right? We just want to fix the attitude on the surface. But what if the real breakthrough comes from just understanding the physiological and emotional engines that are driving that behavior in the first place? I really hope this explainer has empowered you with the clarity and the exact resources you need to take that next step with total confidence. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.